Once again, I am Reverend John M. Polk, and the name of my presentation is Enlil, the Biblical God. So the Anunnaki were instrumental in seeding our planet and telling us that they are the gods. Now they want to be instrumental in disclosure by telling us that they posed as God or gods by giving us language and religion. Now, this divided us, causing us to fight amongst ourselves and to take the attention off of them. Now, why would they do this? Because of the divine Trinity, the power of three that's within all of us, especially creator alien gods. It's an integral part of their ascension. Now, first you have the creation energy, which came from Old Testament Enlil, who created we humans in his image. And then second, you have the power that maintains. Enter Jesus Christ, Enlil's own hand-sculpted deity, to usher in a new sense of love and love for all human beings, regardless of what their religion was, as he was trying to convert many to Christianity and was very successful in doing so as he traveled around the earth. And then finally, you have the destructive energy, which is taking place right now. You know, you look at our global economy, our financial systems, terrorism. You know, unfortunately, that last terrorist attack happened 7.3 miles from my house here in Orlando, Florida. And then the imminent disclosure, which is well on its way. Now, unfortunately, you cannot have rebirth and renewal without three, including the destructive energy. So therefore, the creation energy is just as important as the destructive energy, which will start the cycle over again. Now, disclosure will restart the cycle, and it's just a matter of time before it's upon us. Disclosure will be the definitive proof that ET created religion, thus destroying our old misguided religious beliefs. Only then can we achieve enlightenment, knowing that we are all a part of the one universal God consciousness. Now, as you alluded to earlier in the preface of my presentation, I did do a presentation at Experiencer Speak 4 conference where I conducted a seance through a guided meditation with 79 experiencers, tapping into the energy of experiencers, which increased my energy exponentially to be able to conduct this seance and actually ask loving and benevolent extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, and angels to join us in the congregation. And it actually worked. There was over 20 witnesses, as you said, and I'm going to go into that in the second half of my presentation. Enlil, the biblical God, the way I interpreted Enlil a couple years ago before I realized who he really was, I interpreted him as Yahweh. But I still called Yahweh. Yahweh, the biblical God, is an alien, is my book that Karen Christine Patrick, it's my publicist editor. She did my whole PowerPoint presentation for me. We did it together, but she was the artist behind the whole thing, and I love her to death. But anyway, the book is available at johnpolkmedia.com and alienoraclescrolls.com. Now, Enlil, the biblical God. The premise of the book is that the God portrayed in the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, is not the real God. He's an extraterrestrial, alien creator God that goes by many names dating back in history. To differentiate this being from the real God, I refer to him as Yahweh. The book explores the idea that alien creator God seeded our planet. This creator God alien is also known as Enlil of the Anunnaki. Let's switch gears for a few before I move forward. There's a foundation that I work with as a consultant. It's called Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free Foundation, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. And they have actually articulated and conducted the most comprehensive and longest study into ET contact with experiencers exclusively. Now, I've done the first 2 phases out of 4 phases in this research project. They have published results on experiencer.org. If you're an experiencer, you want to take the survey. Encourage you. It will help all of us and the 20 plus PhDs that Free boasts to be able to increase the data and increase the research. And, you know, without people taking the survey, there's no point in having the survey. So there's thousands of people that have taken it, and you're more than invited to take it, especially, of course, if you are an experiencer. And that's at experiencer.org. Now, Ray Hernandez, one of the co-founders of Free, and Dr. Rudy Schild, Emeritus Professor of Astrophysics at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Now, Dr. Schild also serves as the Executive Director of Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free. Both of these gentlemen, along with Audrey Starborn-Hewins. Now, Audrey Starborn-Hewins is the young lady that asked me to be the opening speaker at the Experiencers Speak 4 conference August of last year. But all three of them have donated articles to my book. Audrey was about her experiences as an experiencer with the Pleiadians. Ray Hernandez wrote an article entitled The Paranormal Quantum Hologram Theory of ET Contact. And Dr. Schild's article is entitled Modern Miracles and the Quantum Hologram. All three of these articles are in the book, Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an Alien. Ray Hernandez, co-founder of Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free Foundation, his birthday is on October 1st. So last year, he came up with the concept of Experiencer Liberation Day, which is October 1st. The first one was celebrated last year on October 1st. Now, every October 1st for the rest of our lives, we can celebrate this day. And you can buy a button, like we have the artwork here on this slide. And I think it's $10. If you go to experiencer.org, it's a nonprofit organization, only costs $10, and it helps support these foundations that really don't have a whole lot of money coming in. Aquarian Radio, a special thanks to Dr. Sasha Lesson and Janet Lesson, more specifically Janet, who I work with her every Friday night on the Experiencers Network on Experiencer Night. Every Friday night, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, I co-host with Janet, along with Karen Christine Patrick, who just spoke before me. And we delve into the lives of experiencers and their ET and supernatural encounters. Please go to the website, www.aquarianradio.com. Give us a listen, even call in you wish. And if you wish to be on the Experiencers Network show, possibly we can get you on. You can message us through aquarianradio.com, or you can message me, Reverend John Polk, at Reverend Polk on Twitter, or you can email me directly, jpolk2@cfl.rr.com. Also, I did 6 different podcasts on SoundCloud that Karen Christine Patrick actually put music to, and she's great at production, by the way. But, you know, Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an Alien. In fact, I talk about Enlil and what he did as a creator God alien. It's all in my book, and you can listen to these for free on my website, johnpolkmedia.com. All right, so Enlil, the Biblical God, Ancient Alien Creator Gods. This was a section where I could actually do a whole show on it with all the Creator God aliens, the deities, the higher ascended extraterrestrials, but it would take far too long. But just to give you a map of the world, if you go back into every culture, if you go back into almost every single country, even remote islands in Micronesia, you can find that their heritage, that their own biblical stories within their own religious texts goes back to some creator God alien that descended from the sky in a fiery chariot, brought life to the planet, and or manipulated the existing life to create life on our planet. And this is the common story, which plays right into ancient alien astronaut theory that you can go and research on pretty much every area of the entire world. Now, Enlil is Yahweh of the Judeo-Christian traditions. He is a creator God alien. He wanted to be worshiped by we primitive humans. Now, creator God aliens harvest prayer energy from lesser beings like ourselves. Archangels, who appear in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, are actually what I call the archaliens. Now, these beings, realizing that they needed to fix the human condition in order to be allowed to reach their own next supernatural spiritual level. So let me take a few steps back and explain what I outlined in my book, Yahweh, the Biblical God as an Alien. So when we pray to these creator alien gods, which is what they really want us to do, when we pray to them, they receive and they harness our prayer energy. There is so much power in the spoken word. You can actually measure prayer energy with what you call an electroscope. And often, not always, but often, these creator God aliens would create stone monuments on geodetic markers around the world on the earth grid. And these pyramids, obelisks, pyramid complexes, etc., often mirrored star constellations, i.e. Orion and the Pleiades. So now we're worshiping creator God aliens, stone monuments that are pointed towards the heavens that are basically in line with star constellations. Now, why would they do that? So that that prayer energy goes back to their home planet and goes to them. And so the more we pray to them, the more energy that they receive from us. And that's all part of the basic design in this human creation, not just experiment anymore, but program. So upon us praying to them, they receive this energy. But now let's extrapolate that. Imagine that Earth is not unique in any way in this program, that this program is going on multiple planets, whether we know it or not, in our own solar system, in our own Milky Way galaxy, in Andromeda, our neighboring galaxy, all throughout the universe and all throughout the multiverse. So imagine Enlil and other creator God aliens may have upwards of thousands of planets that they're receiving prayer energy from. And upon us passing and going to the other side, it's often written in their religious texts how to get to heaven. Well, guess what? You're not necessarily going to heaven. You're going to Enlil and other creator God aliens' version of heaven or hell, depending on how you lived your life. And Janet and Karen and I were talking about this last night. I was talking about this concept, and Janet, I said it a certain way, and Janet kind of tweaked it, and I love what she said. She said, the quantum hologram matrix, where your soul can get caught up in the soul recycling program for perhaps 10, 20, upwards of 100 or more lifetimes before your God self or your soul finally looks away from this false version of heaven or hell and sees the God light and ultimately ascends to the real universal God consciousness, cycles through that, and finally comes back in another incarnation. But this is a basic concept that creator God aliens, not just Enlil, but others throughout, all throughout the universe, which it permeates, that are doing this. Now, what is happening? Where this made Enlil extra supernatural, extra powerful from all of the prayer energy and all of the souls from perhaps billions upon billions of people and beings, not just from our planet, from planets all around the omniverse, where this was making him increasingly more powerful. Now it's thwarting his ascension process. Why? Because the lesser gods rule the planets and the underworld, and the higher gods rule the heavens and tell the lesser gods who rule the planets and the underworld what to do. Enlil wants to be counted amongst and become one of the higher, if not the highest gods in the hierarchy pantheon of outer space. And as long as we are praying to him and he's receiving our souls through deception it's making him weak, where in the past it made him strong. So now this is the number one reason he came to me years ago. First, he came to me as Enoch back in 2009. So I know that Enoch is definitely part of the Anunnaki pantheon. He came to me as Enoch, and I know I was receiving from Enoch for perhaps a couple years. And then eventually I realized, oh, well, wait, Enoch is in fact Yahweh. Yahweh did not want me to understand that he was actually living vicariously through Enoch to communicate with me. And I asked him, why? Why all the deception? And he said, because you are not spiritually ready enough for the information to be able to digest it, process it, and fathom it. So I had to wait. This is, you're still an infant in this process. It takes a lot of time. And so I understood that. And so after arguing with Karen Christine Patrick about who Yahweh ultimately was, she kept telling me that he was Enlil. And I was just in total denial. I'm like, no, can't be Enlil. And a couple years removed, I realized, Karen, you were right. It is Enlil. So I asked Enlil, why? And he gave me the same answer. You weren't ready yet. And you know what? I wasn't. So I'm glad that they kind of spoon fed me as the infant that I was, as I was growing into this role that I'm supposed to be taking a part of. And I am in Enlil's ascension process to communicate this message to all humanity. But I am not special in any way. I am not unique. All of us, especially us experiencers, are channeling some higher being, perhaps even some creator God alien, to give us information, to disseminate to the masses, because it's not time for them to come down to earth and do it themselves. But disclosure is on its way, and it's going to be here before we know it. So I've got a couple close encounters with Enlil that I wanted to share that have changed my life absolutely forever. And they're both, or there's a few of them, all of them are incredible encounters. So let me begin with meeting Enlil on a ship. So I'm on a spaceship, and I'm next to Enlil, and I'm next to Jesus Christ, and I'm next to Ezekiel and Elijah and a number of other biblical figures, Moses, Noah, and some others. And they all present themselves in the very stereotypical Greco-Roman off-white kind of robe with maybe a sash coming over their shoulder. They all had a lot of gray hair, big beards. Now, that's either the way they actually looked, or what I thought they looked like, or the presentation that they wanted me to receive as a human, coming to me looking like human beings. Any one of them could be true, can't be exactly sure, but I think it was what they wanted me to see. They wanted me to see them looking more human, as I am a human. And so then all of those are to my left. And then I look in front of me, and all of a sudden I pan across the front of the spaceship. I see a windshield and stars racing by, just smeared light, like I'm going warp speed in Star Trek. And then in the middle, I see a monster console with all this gadgetry, and I see a gray alien. I don't see his face. It was pretty clear it was a gray alien. And he has a halo on his head, which to me seemed like it was a navigational device that he was using. He wasn't using his hands. He was waving his hands around, but not actually touching any of the gadgetry. You knew he was navigating the space-time vehicle mentally with his mind. And then I pan over to the right, and I see somebody completely different. This individual still wearing the same Greco-Roman off-white robe. However, this one is young in appearance. Looks to be about 18 or 19 years old. Has long, wavy, curly blonde hair. And then in front of him is an oval, not a circle, but an oval, more shaped like an egg. And inside the egg are stars, planets, supernovas, suns, um, outer space, basically. And I can see him without touching any of the stars. He's moving them around with his hands without touching them. And to me, I interpret that as he's manipulating some kind of astronomical or astrological device, which was pretty amazing. And so he'd reconfigure the stars, the planets, the moons, the suns, the black holes, the supernovas, and just with a wave of his hand, whoosh, he'd push that screen away, and then a new set of stars, perhaps a new solar system, perhaps a new galaxy would pop up. And then he would manipulate those stars, those planets, those suns, those moons, those black holes, move all that around. And then with the waving of his hand, whoosh, a new one would pop up. And he did this several times. And so now I'm focused only on this individual to my right, manipulating these star systems, these solar systems, galaxies, if you will. And he can feel me looking at him. I can feel him knowing that he is feeling me look at him. So now all of a sudden we're telepathically communicating with each other without even saying anything. It was more of an empathic thing of feeling each other. So then he looks over his shoulder at me. And who was it? It was me. It was me. So now I have to think, was that really me? Or was it a manifestation of whatever that individual wanted me to see? Can't be exactly sure, but what a trip. So when I first started having this encounter on I would call Enlil's mothership, I would only have a few biblical figures next to me, but each time I would come back, there'd be more, and there would be more, and there would be more. The last time it was a full house, but the same setup. All the biblical figures to the left of me, the gray alien in front of me, and then whoever it was, whatever it was, that looked like me, manipulating this astronomical and astrological device to the right of me. So that was being on Enlil ships. Happened to me a number of times. Another thing that happened to me regarding Enlil is I'm on a ship. And this is a totally different setup. On a ship, and we're sitting down. It's different. What I was sitting on was metallic and it was cold. And then there's two or three human beings, or looked like humans, next to me on my right side. And then at the end was an unusually huge, Asian-looking in appearance, human-like being. He had curiously large, huge eyes, huge eye orbits, Asian in appearance, dark hair, complexion of an Asian. And he says to me that we are going to have to take you for 300 years, just like we did Enoch, to teach you the Akashic record. And I said, I've been praying for this my whole life. I just cannot believe that this opportunity has been bestowed upon me. And then I go, wait, I can't go. I can't do it. And he said, yeah, you can. I'm like, well, please don't take me now, because I just fell in love. I fell in love with the woman of my dreams. I know we've been together many, many lifetimes before. And, if you take me away now, she's going to think that I've been murdered. My body will not be, retrievable. My family, all my friends, not more importantly, but to me, most important thing was this love of my life. She's going to think I'm dead. And you just can't take me now. I mean, I wish you had done it before I met her. But you can't fight the timing in your life. And so I come up with a proposition. So now I'm trying to proposition, more than likely, an extraterrestrial. And I say to him, let me work a deal with you. Allow me to cheat time in another dimension. And he says, cheat time in another dimension? He said, where do you get that from? I said, well, here's my concept. Take me away for 300 years, but allow me to cheat time in another dimension so that everybody in the earth plane thinks I'm only gone for 72 hours, which is 3 days. I'll just tell everybody I had to work the whole weekend, which is believable. That happens to me a lot. And, you know, just don't let me age to be over 300 years old or I'll die. You know, and then I'll come back. So I'll be gone for 300 years in this dimension. It may seem like 300 years to me, but to everybody that knows me and loves me here in the 3D earth plane, they'll only think I'm gone 3 days. And so this big Asian being, he says to me, he says, you know, it's a brilliant concept, but you can't do it because you've used up all of your cheating time in another dimension, bargaining chips in your past lifetimes. And this whole concept bled through into this lifetime. And that's why you're bringing it up again. So you can't cheat time anymore. You've been cheating it for however many lifetimes prior to this one. So you're out of chips. You can't do it. And I said, well, how about this? Abduct me every night, whether you physically take my body or you psychically take my soul while I sleep. But just please don't take me from the love of my life. And he agreed to do that. And so about a year later, I was trying to figure out who this huge Asian extraterrestrial was. And it came to me that it was actually Enlil of the Anunnaki. And I asked him, you know, why didn't you, you know, manifest as who you really were? And he said the same thing he said before. You weren't ready yet. You weren't mature enough spiritually to be able to absorb it and handle it. So that's why I came to you as somebody that you would never interpret as me. And I had to understand and realize that he was completely and totally correct. So another concept, which is not my concept, it's an old ancient concept, but the Anunnaki conquered the Pleiades, Orion, Sirius, Cygnus, Mars, and countless other planets, star systems, constellations, not just in our galaxy, but all throughout the universe. And so whenever you come in contact with somebody that says they're from Pleiades, that they're Pleiadian, or any of these other star systems, you have to figure that part of their DNA is Anunnaki. The Anunnaki colonized and seeded life on all of these planets. So now it stands to reason if they come from these planets that they in fact are Anunnaki. Okay, so I love to sit in my backyard and look at the stars. So if you look at this frame, the far left, that was a UFO. I was able to capture it. Most of the time I can never capture these things, but this one I did. This was back in 2014. Now, the next frame in the bottom middle is actually the top right frame. The top right frame was taken before dark, and the one in the middle was taken after dark. So what that light is, if you go to the top right frame, you see a little light on the roof of somebody's house. So I'm sitting in my backyard in what I call my captain's chair, looking as the sky is starting to get dark. You can just start to see the stars. And I see a bird. I see a bird descend from the sky. No big deal. We all see birds every day. But this bird was different. This bird slowly descended, landed on the roof of my neighbor's house. And the pitch of the roof, if you're sitting on the roof where this light is, it would face me directly in my captain's chair. But right before it landed on the roof, it turned into a rectangular metallic object. So in effect, perhaps a biocyberganic unit. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it went from looking like some kind of organic being into what looked like a machine. So I get up out of my chair, I take my phone over, start taking some pictures of it. And at first there was no light on. So I take a bunch of pictures of it, and it's just this black metallic rectangular object, kind of nondescript. You couldn't really tell what it was or what it wasn't. So then I went back and sat down, and I decided I'm going to send telepathically to this thing to see if anything happens. So I start sending to it telepathically, asking it to communicate back with me. And as it gets dark, and you can see in the frame in the upper right corner that all of a sudden a light illuminated, and I saw this thing go from no light to having a light. Now my curiosity is piqued heavily, and what is this thing? And so I go up and take more pictures of it, and then as it gets dark, take more pictures of it. Now I go back and sit in my captain's chair, and I'm sending to it telepathically some more, and the light goes off and the light comes back on to let me know that it knows that I'm sending it to it telepathically. And that was its way of acknowledging that we're trying to do this exchange of communication. So now my curiosity is just busting through the roof. And then I go out into the street and I see that my neighbors are all taking pictures of it. And I started asking my neighbors, well, what do you think it is? And they're like, well, we don't know. It's just some kind of strange light. And so this went on for a number of hours, and I must have sat there and watched it for 8 hours, and it got kind of boring because it wasn't doing anything, but I could feel it doing diagnostics on me. I could feel it, doing readings on my pulse, my respiration, my heart rate, perhaps even digging into my brain. Not exactly sure, but I could feel it. It was invasive, that feeling that I had, but it didn't feel uncomfortable. I could tell it was doing some kind of analysis on me. So I would pop into my house and pop back outside, go get some water, come back outside, and I did this off and on all night. Finally got bored and went to bed. The next morning at 7 o'clock, it was still there. And then I went back to bed and then came back out, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was completely gone. Now, to me, after meditating on this for a couple years now, I believe that whatever that was, it was not sent by the MyLabs. It wasn't sent by our government. I believe it was sent by the Anunnaki, just to keep tabs on me. Can't prove it, but that's the gut feeling that I do have. Now, this particular UFO orb sighting, I called a young lady named Lynn Hartram, who works with Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free. Her name's Lynn Hartram. She runs the peer support program where if you're an abductee or an experiencer and you just want somebody to talk to, you can call her or call free, and she'll get not a counselor, but a peer to talk to you. And all the peers are experiencers just like myself. And I have a few that I talk with also. And so I'm talking to her on the phone, and I said, Lynn, I have found a way to look into infrared and ultraviolet light spectrums to be able to see a UFO hiding in plain sight. And she said, funny that you say that, because I just bought an infrared camera and I got this picture. She took this picture and sent it to me. And this red orb, where that red orb was just stationary for 8 hours in the sky, maybe a half a mile or more from my house, just stuck in the sky, did not move. So it wasn't a meteor. It wasn't a satellite. It wasn't a star, wasn't a planet, wasn't anything that you can prove by our modern day science. Now the red orb that I saw stayed stationary, but the one that she got the photo of, it followed her for about 20 minutes in the Boston area when she went to go take her daughter from a music recital back to their home in Boston. And so the whole infrared ultraviolet light, and I can traverse my body, mind, spirit to look into these spectrums and see aircraft that use these light spectrums as a cloaking device. And I've been able to do this for a couple years, and it doesn't always work as well as I want to. Sometimes it works really well. But this is one where we actually got some kind of video of it. Now here's another sighting from my backyard. If you look at the top left photo, you just see a point of light. But if you see just to the right of it, there's another little point of light next to it. Can't exactly identify what it is, but now I can see that there's something about it. It seems like it's moving, and then it will move, and then it'll move back into place. It'll move, then it'll move back into place. How does it do that? Well, then it's not a plane. Planes don't fly backwards. So then if you go to the bottom left photo, you see it again. Doesn't really look like it's moved too much, although it did. And then in the third frame in the upper right, you see it's more like a dash across the photo. All of a sudden it just went, it must have taken off, I don't know, thousands of miles an hour, and then it just stopped. And then if you look at the photo in the bottom right, you see pretty much the same thing going back to the original photo in its original orientation. So that was something that I captured on photo, and usually I can't capture it. I try. Usually I don't capture anything, but that time I did, which was really, really cool. Now these resemble eyes. These things will just materialize on the walls and ceiling of my house. And we on Aquarian Radio had a really great guest who was also at Contact in the Desert, and I hope that Janet was able to meet him. His name is Brad Olson. He was a great interview, incredibly intelligent. But one thing he said is that ET is always here, and that there's some evolved, highly evolved extraterrestrial being or beings that are always watching us. So I'm walking through my house. I'd never seen this before. The left photo, I took a picture of it. You can see the corner of the lamp. And then the next one, I got more of a close-up. So if you look at it, the photo on the right, they kind of resemble eyes. To me, they're eyes. And almost like there's a little bit of white inside of each one. I interpret that as the pupils. But that was not there one day. Boom, all of a sudden it's there. There was something to it. And that's my obvious interpretation, is that they're always watching. Now, this is right above my bed. The upper left photo, I used a fan blade just to give you some perspective as to where it is in my room. So imagine I lay down in my bed every night. I look up, I see my ceiling fan, and then I see these two eyes. They're always looking at me. And if you look at the frame on the right, it kind of looks like gray alien eyes. And there's no other places in my home like this, but right over my bed. Gee, imagine that. I have this thing I do with pendulums where I can have two different pendulums at the same time. They're both different lengths. One has a different weight than the other one. And I can make them spin at different velocities where it's pretty obvious that I'm not spinning them myself. It is actually telekinesis. And I demonstrate this in a video on YouTube. If you care to go look at it, you can see it on my website, johnpolkmedia.com, or you can go to YouTube and look up pendulum fire magic. Pendulum fire magic.